The Godfather of Soul challenged the king of pop to do something impossible. Michael took it personally. What happened next made James Brown bow down on stage. It was February 1983, backstage at the Beverly Theater in Los Angeles. The Grammys were over, the after-parties were in full swing, and two legends found themselves in the same green room. James Brown, 50 years old, the Godfather of Soul, the man who invented funk, and Michael Jackson, 24 years old, riding the early wave of Thriller's success, already being called the King of Pop. They'd met before. Michael had studied James since childhood, learning from his energy, his stage presence, his absolute command of an audience. But there had always been distance between them. Respect, yes, but also something else. Competition, the unspoken question of who was really the best. James was holding court, as he always did. A group of younger artists surrounded him, listening to stories about the Apollo Theater, about performances that had become legend. Michael stood slightly apart, watching, listening. He wore a red leather jacket and sunglasses despite being indoors. His signature look, his armor against a world that always wanted something from him. James noticed Michael watching. "Young Michael Jackson," James said, his voice carrying that distinctive rasp. "The king of pop himself. Come here, boy. Let me look at you." Michael approached slowly. The other artists stepped back, sensing the energy shift in the room. This wasn't just two musicians talking. This was a generational confrontation. "Mr. Brown," Michael said softly. His voice was always soft, always respectful, but there was steel underneath. "I watched you on that Motown special," James said. "That moonwalk thing. Very nice, very smooth." "Thank you, sir." "But," James continued, and Michael heard the edge in that word, "that's just one move, baby. One trick. I've been doing 5, 6, 7 moves in a single performance for 30 years. You got one move that went viral. You think that makes you a dancer?" The room went quiet. The challenge was unmistakable. The disrespect was intentional. James Brown didn't believe Michael Jackson was in his league. Michael removed his sunglasses slowly. His eyes met James's. "I have more than one move, Mr. Brown." "Show me then," James said, gesturing to the open space in the room. "Show me something I haven't seen. Show me something that impresses me." Michael knew what this was. This was James Brown testing him, challenging him, trying to establish dominance. Every dancer knew about James's competitive nature. He'd dance younger performers into the ground just to prove he was still the best. At 50, he could still move like he was 25, and he used that to intimidate everyone around him. "Not here," Michael said quietly. "Not like this." James laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "That's what I thought. You're good for television, Michael, good for MTV, but you're not a real performer. Not like the ones who came before you, not like me." Michael felt heat rise in his chest. Anger, but also something else. Determination. He put his sunglasses back on. "What would you consider real performing, Mr. Brown?" James stood up. Despite his age, he moved like a coiled spring. "You want to know what separates the boys from the men in this business? Control, complete control. I can spin 8 times and stop on a dime. I can drop to my knees and pop back up without using my hands. I can dance for 2 hours straight and never miss a beat. That's real performing. That's mastery." "I can do those things," Michael said. "Can you?" James stepped closer. "Can you spin until you fall and make it look good? Can you take a mistake and turn it into art? That's the test, baby. Any dancer can do a move when it's planned. Can you do a move when it's chaos? Can you fall and make people think you meant to do it?" Michael understood what James was really asking. Could Michael be spontaneous? Could he handle the unexpected? Or was he just a perfectionist who only looked good when everything was controlled and rehearsed? "You think I can't?" Michael asked. "I think you're scared to try," James said. "I think you do your one little moonwalk and your choreographed routines and you call that dancing. But you don't have what it takes to really perform, to really put your body on the line and see what happens." The room was electric with tension. The other artists watched, not sure if they were witnessing a friendly rivalry or the beginning of a feud. Michael's voice, when he spoke, was very quiet, very controlled. "What's your challenge, Mr. Brown?" James smiled. "Spin until you fall. Actually fall. But make it look like you meant to do it. Make it look like art. If you can do that, if you can turn losing control into something beautiful, then maybe you're as good as people say you are." "And if I can do it?" Michael asked. "Then I'll bow down to you on stage," James said. "In front of everyone. I'll admit you beat me. But you won't do it, because you don't have the guts to lose control." Michael nodded slowly. "Okay." "Okay, what?" "Okay, I accept your challenge. Give me 6 months." James laughed again. 6 months? Boy, this isn't something you practice. This is something you feel. You either have it or you don't. 6 months, Michael repeated. Then we'll see. Michael left the party shortly after. He went home to his house in Encino, went straight to his private dance studio and started working. He put on music. He started spinning. 1 rotation, 2, 3, 4. On the 4th spin, he let himself fall. He hit the ground hard. It looked terrible. It looked like exactly what it was, a fall. He got up and tried again. 5 spins, then fall. Still looked bad. 6 spins, fall. Worse. His body instinctively tried to catch himself to prevent the fall. That's what made it look awkward, the self-preservation. Michael worked for 3 hours that first night. Every fall hurt. Every fall looked terrible. By the end, his body was bruised and his frustration was overwhelming. But he kept James Brown's words in his mind. You don't have the guts to lose control. The next morning, Michael called his choreographer, Vincent Patterson. "I need you to teach me how to fall," Michael said. "Fall?" Vincent was confused. "Michael, you're one of the most controlled dancers I know. Why do you need to learn to fall?" "Because I need to make falling look intentional," Michael explained. "I need to fall and make it beautiful." Vincent came over that afternoon. For the next 2 weeks, they worked on controlled falls. How to protect your body while making the fall look natural. How to roll through a fall to dissipate impact. How to fall and immediately recover. But none of it looked right. It looked like what it was, a controlled fall. Safety was visible, and safety killed the illusion. "This isn't working," Michael said one day, frustrated. "It still looks practiced. I need it to look spontaneous but also intentional. I need people to think I chose to fall." "That's contradictory," Vincent said. "How can something be spontaneous and intentional?" Michael thought about this. What if the fall isn't the end? What if the fall is the setup for something else? "Like what?" Michael started pacing, the way he always did when he was thinking. "James spins and falls, but what if I spin and freeze? What if instead of falling, I stop in a position that should be impossible? What if I spin so fast that momentum should carry me over, but I freeze on my toes like gravity stopped working?" Vincent stared at him. "Michael, that's physics. You can't just stop momentum." "But what if I could?" Michael was excited now, his eyes bright. "What if I developed enough control, enough core strength, enough balance, that I could spin and then freeze in a releve on 1 foot? It would look impossible. It would look like I'm defying gravity." "It would also be insanely difficult," Vincent said. "Maybe impossible." "Then I'll practice until it's possible," Michael said. For the next 4 months, Michael worked on that move obsessively. He reinforced his ballet training, working on releve strength. Hours of balancing on the balls of his feet, building the small muscles in his feet and ankles that most people never even think about. He worked on his core, doing exercises that would let him control every part of his body independently. He practiced spinning, then stopping, then spinning faster, then stopping faster. His family worried about him. His mother, Catherine, would come into the studio and find him drenched in sweat, spinning over and over, falling, getting up, trying again. "Michael, baby, you're going to hurt yourself," she'd say. "I'm fine, Mother," Michael would reply, never stopping. His brothers asked what he was working on. "Something new," was all Michael would say. He didn't tell anyone about the challenge. This was between him and James Brown, between the Godfather and the King. 5 months in, Michael could spin 5 times and freeze. 6 months in, he could spin 7 times and freeze. The key was the spot, keeping his eyes focused on a single point as long as possible during the spin to maintain orientation. And then, at the exact moment when momentum should carry him into a fall, he'd plant his weight through one foot, engage his entire core, and freeze. It looked impossible because it almost was impossible. The window for success was maybe a quarter of a second. Too early and he'd wobble. Too late and he'd fall. But in that perfect moment, he could freeze mid-motion and look like he'd mastered gravity itself. July 1983. The Jacksons were performing a series of summer concerts. James Brown was playing the same venue in Los Angeles a week earlier. Michael made sure he was there, backstage, waiting. James finished his show. He came backstage, still sweating, still energized from performing. And there was Michael Jackson, standing quietly in the hallway. "Young Michael," James said, surprised. "What brings you here?" "Our challenge," Michael said. 6 months are up." James had honestly forgotten. It had been a throwaway comment, a way to humble a rising star. He hadn't expected Michael to take it seriously. "You actually worked on it?" "I did." Something in Michael's voice made James pay attention. There was confidence there, certainty. "You think you did it? You think you can spin and fall and make it look good?" "I didn't fall," Michael said. "I did something better. I want to show you. Tomorrow night, my show, I'll do it on stage. You should be there to see it." James studied Michael's face. The soft-spoken young man was gone. This was an artist who'd conquered something. "All right," James said. "I'll be there." The next night, James Brown sat in the VIP section of the arena. Michael's show was electric, the thriller material killing, the audience losing their minds. Then came a moment midway through the show. Michael did his solo section. He started dancing, building energy, spinning. 1 rotation, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then he stopped, froze completely. 1 foot on the ground, the other leg extended back, balanced on the ball of his front foot, his body leaning forward at an angle that should have toppled him over. He held the position. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, impossible balance, impossible control. The audience gasped. Then Michael slowly straightened, as if gravity had just remembered how to work, and continued dancing like nothing extraordinary had happened. James Brown stood up in his seat. "No," he said out loud. "No way." Michael did it again later in the show. 8 spins this time, then that impossible freeze. The move that looked like time stopped. The move that made people question what they were seeing. After the show, James went backstage. He found Michael's dressing room, knocked. Michael opened the door, still in his performance clothes, sweat still dripping. "You did it," James said simply. "I did." "That wasn't falling. That was something else entirely. You didn't just meet my challenge. You exceeded it. You created something new." Michael nodded. "I spent 6 months on that move because you said I couldn't do it. Because you said I didn't have guts." James Brown, the Godfather of Soul, the man who'd never bowed to anyone in his life, stepped into the dressing room and closed the door behind him. "I was wrong," he said. "I was testing you. I was trying to keep you in your place. But you didn't stay in your place. You took what I meant as an insult and turned it into innovation." "Thank you," Michael said quietly. "Don't thank me," James replied. "You did the work. But I owe you something. I made a promise." "The stage bow?" Michael smiled slightly. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do," James said. "A bet is a bet. And more than that, you deserve the recognition. You've earned the respect. Tomorrow, I'm coming to your show again. And when you do that move, I'm coming on stage and bowing to you. The Godfather bowing to the King. Because that's what happened here. The crown passed." Michael started to protest, but James held up his hand. "Don't argue with me, boy. I'm doing this because you're the real thing. You're not just talented. You're dedicated. You took a challenge that most people would have ignored, and you used it to push yourself further. That's mastery. That's greatness. And I respect greatness." The next night, James Brown was in the audience again. When Michael did the spin and freeze move, James walked up to the stage. Security tried to stop him, but Michael saw him coming and waved them off. James climbed onto the stage. The audience went crazy, not understanding what was happening. Was this planned? Was this real? Michael finished the move, that impossible freeze. then straightened. James walked up to him, and in front of 20,000 people and hundreds of cameras, the Godfather of Soul bowed, a deep, formal bow, a transfer of respect. Then James took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying through the arena, "you just witnessed something special. This young man right here, Michael Jackson, he accepted a challenge from me 6 months ago. I told him he couldn't do something. He proved me wrong. And when someone proves the Godfather wrong, the Godfather bows. You're watching greatness, people. You're watching the evolution of dance happening right in front of you. This is your king." The arena erupted. Michael stood there, stunned, emotional. James handed him back the microphone, hugged him tight, and whispered in his ear, "You beat the master, Michael. Now make sure nobody beats you." That moment became legendary. The video circulated. The story spread. The spin and freeze move became one of Michael's signatures, analyzed and imitated but never quite replicated. Because it wasn't just about the spin, it wasn't just about the freeze, it was about the 6 months of work. The dedication, the refusal to back down from a challenge. James Brown and Michael Jackson became friends after that. The competition turned into respect. James would call Michael sometimes just to talk about performing, about the dedication required to stay at the top. And Michael never forgot that James's challenge had pushed him to create something new. When James Brown died in 2006, Michael released a statement. "James challenged me to be better. He didn't believe I could do what he could do. I spent 6 months proving him wrong, and when I finally showed him, he bowed to me." That's the mark of a true master. Someone who can recognize greatness even when it surpasses their own. I'll never forget that, Bo. I'll never forget what he taught me about competition and respect. The move exists in every Michael Jackson tribute today. Dancers trying to capture that impossible freeze. But it's not just about replicating the move. It's about understanding what it represents. A challenge accepted, a master defeated, and most importantly, the idea that true greatness comes from taking the things people say you can't do and turning them into your signature. James Brown told Michael Jackson to spin until he fell. Michael created a move that makes falling impossible. That's not just meeting a challenge, that's redefining what challenge means, and that's why the Godfather bowed to the king.